Chom den den jambe yong la sha za lo kong ge lo de jem nye den de nye dra nam da rab sra ve chen nye den guen che chen zik shre nye je tu gra le wan zen kong dai si be zun ri ma ri mun tam dung ra che zre ve Rozoi kun lai puje darze yen lai tu ju yong den song Rodare che ro nyamo nye no le je chak ro ron ze jen Mare men sere dungare nyogo chenye jen ze ra de nam Dene da jen sa ju darze yen den lu zo ja se tu go Chödrak chödan chöni gente dağlı müzün canbe yonglan de zeden çece çenra özrece dağlı demo men barab sırane kadan dence jonglu dokbaye loje boy be nongwa zadu Tam ge do je shao je ri zo zhong jin je me do du je bong jin ba ser je lun bo ta bu je ge go shao je ve shao lang ge sha cha la ya me shao nong du je jin re ze sa ye nin bo zhe ba nam ba se re nam ge nin bo shang ba kun do zong ye ve se xin je lang ge sha cha la xie jie ka la qin ra bi jin gu ro je ze be dong du je len la po ya ve den ba kun ne san ze be ka ju Rinpoche sha je wo chö dong chö jen ne lo man ro wa ra che jen zip ne chen be she je ro so yi la kung ge pa tra wa rig be dur je shab la ge sha chal la so de ne number 2 samba shong jib cho do tu je par Rinpoche sal tam ne Tene yasel lane sodema hieshawe yongzong desen ro nang.
So please begin by generating the body mind in a clear and a precise manner, and with that as your motivation, listen to the teachings that are to be given attentively.
Tene chirtane yasela ne sodema shunken yongde chi nyong dan ja chenpo ten che nyamne chenken ji yena tu le sim gona yang tab debo pe yong yijin no bom cha le jang sha gwe ke yong song bo chire
Kare bom cha le
Penna ta jeting je kam na pe misiwa ga nam chin tsi de ya ge tene Rinpoche ri tang tende bomcha thuma le hlak we yong ji re de ba yang len pa ji tsena
rin
tang da ma so
So the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva, authored by Togme, is a very short text, though short meaning-wise, it is very, very extensive. It's very vast. Now, because the composition is a relatively short one, it's easy to memorize these few verses. And for a practitioner, and to do so would have greater value than, for example, acquiring hundreds of thousands of precious stones as one's personal fortune. The value of these many precious stones is less than one's memorization of these few verses.
Penna tinjo korang tsingel samna tangda lak len songdwa. Ta shongchup dönyerge gongsaachige.
Lasso?
Lunga yisum ye tentu nyamling chena tan deji chegore songbachre.
So the 37 practices are practices to be used. And for a person who aspires to attain enlightenment, these 37 practices in terms of body, speech and mind have this effect. To begin with, that of making progress on the path to enlightenment, and in the end, by way of these 37 practices, it is possible to attain that goal.
Tandi yongde ngarangi shusate tene keon sembado jindone kung zamben drabatan drane shubitindaji.
Khenpo Rinpoche, as was mentioned yesterday, uses Senpa Dorje's commentary to the 37 practices in terms of the explanations that he's about to give. And he received the transmission of that commentary from the author himself, Senpa Dorje.
Lasso, that tendegi yong tere la tene Tom Legend Legend is the Chödrak Tenzorwa. Chödrak Tenzo che, tene yongdön che, tene yugdön te, dönsin sumgene songzegdu tongbo.
Now, the text is divided into three parts. The first part, where one finds an offering of worship, and the second segment of that first part, where the author states his solemn declaration of intent in terms of the composition. That's then followed by the main part, which sets forth the 37 practices, and then there is the third part at the end of these 37 practices, which is the concluding part.
Tiyinde ta chöje tela tene lak perla phago chinre zigwan chuk thang tene lama ni sume balla sanje bachi reisha sholo kathang bo.
Now, in terms of the text and its first part, here there is, to begin with, one verse which is an offering of worship, a praise in the honor of the qualities of the Bodhisattva Chenrezig and the Guru, inseparable from the Bodhisattva Chenrezig.
Te che yon tu ta tangbo te rang lak pla Papa Chenrezig wanshu la shan sarwa te Namo Lokeshwaraya singedi sare.
So in the text, or this part of the text rather, begins with a short Sanskrit phrase which says Namo Lokeshwaraya, which means I bow down to, or I pay homage to, Lokeshvara, which is the Sanskrit name for Chenrezig.
Ta te che yon tu Dakatu Gwan tu che na Namu singete Shatsawa che Lokeshwara se Jiktin Wanchukla Sangbe Sari. Sula Shatsana Jiktin Wanchukla Shatsalwa yins.
Jikten Wangshu Sungdurva, Jikten Tongsungi Wangshu Segore, Kandishi Segore, Jikten Gansogi Jikten.
Jiktin Tada Gunchuk, Yosek Wanchu, Tante Chenrezig Tsenge Sharachi Yimare.
So Namo means I pay homage to, or I bow down to, Lokeshvara, and that name means Lord of all world systems. It's one of the many names attributed to the Bodhisattva Lokeshvara, usually known as Chenrezig in the Tibetan language.
Dorna Tenen Jiktin Jakam Nan Nebe Chenro Socha Yodo Joke
Chenro Socha Tene
Yoseke Ten Gun Jab Pangin to Churbe
Gun Kya
Pongin Ropa Churbe Na Wangchu Sonsar.
So this Bodhisattva is referred to as the Lord of all world systems, not as or in the sense of him being the ruler of, the political head of all these world systems, as it were. It is rather in the sense of this Bodhisattva being a protector, a refuge, someone who assists all sentient beings, someone who achieves the benefit or welfare for all the sentient beings who inhabit all world systems.
Pena Papa Chenrezig Wanchu La Yiche Ninkon Rupiten Yiche Che
Kan Rupeteng du?
Nin Ner Yiche Shu
Lasse?
Solva Tab Devina Ne Kapke Nasat Dungal Kangal Kanga Set to a chick down Chikai in a young De Chich Dungal Minjongwa Chika ne jepa, se de so gu ne de je yung de chorwa chakwa chi yung gu yue song gu dowa. Tene bardo ne yang chul men rowa.
De majungwa.
Ya, bardo chul nang den zo li ji zhang mi je.
Jigingon la de
Ne je men zhong wa.
minjungwa.
Ti je ma ngi song som de mi je wa la so ba ge pa mang bu shi ra yue de.
Now, in terms of this Bodhisattva, the noble Avalokiteshvara, and Avalokiteshvara is another of these Bodhisattvas' names in Sanskrit or Sanskrit names. Now, usually known as Chenresi in the Tibetan language. Now, a practitioner or a person who, because of his firm trust and confidence in this Bodhisattva, would pray to Chenresi from the depths of his heart in terms of asking for guidance, asking for assistance in various difficult circumstances during one's life. There may be the event of falling ill. There may be many other events of great suffering and difficulties. Now, the practitioner who's able to place his trust and confidence in the Bodhisattva Chenresi will obtain the appeasement of those difficulties. Another example of unfortunate circumstances is perhaps the one any being fears most, that of death. And it's explained that when the mind separates from the body, spelling the death of the person, that involves exceedingly painful experiences on the part of the dying person. If turning to the Bodhisattva Chenresi at this point, that pain can be appeased. Also, after death, the mind of the deceased individual will enter the next phase of existence, which is the state between death and a new rebirth. And while in this state, the deceased person may experience a lot of confusion, fear, and the like, because this is unknown territory, as it were, and that inspires fear. If in this state the person is able to turn to the Bodhisattva Chenresi, supplicating him, then again those circumstances of fear and the like can be appeased, and above all, an unfortunate rebirth in any of the three lower existences can be prevented.
Tapena Petrenchuna, Perdabjil Chatsana, Perglumbate, Papa Sige, Dujar Churva Yins in Shetuyor. Then Pugutenzo Amekon Machene, Katra to Dune, Mandun, Pamagelabula, Conso here in Yokoyot, Mandoyet. Then Tapa Mane de la Tak Cancerable, Yamling Nimbondabuchen, Dinkin Shidai water. That the day Generous Nimbo money, don't sure the Sarsong Gay, Gapo, Game out and the shit, one end they jug Dumarte, Shidam ever Maranke Mongo Tonso.
Now, in Tibet, having for or over a very long period of time, being a Buddhist country, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Chenrezig, is very well known in terms of the entire population. And Tibetans themselves see the Bodhisattva Chenrezig as the Bodhisattva who, in terms of his actions for sentient beings, primarily see Tibet as his main field of action, as it were. Of course, the Bodhisattva Chenrezig is equally concerned with sentient beings in other parts of this world as well as in other world systems. However, it is said that the connection between Tibet and this Bodhisattva is a very close one. And anyone in Tibet would know the Bodhisattva Chenrezig. They would be told of him and of his great compassion by their parents at a very, very young age. As soon as a child can pronounce sounds, he would, by his parents, be taught the mantra of this Bodhisattva. And children in Tibet would very easily, it appears, learn this mantra and recite the mantra. And many Tibetans would, throughout their lives, focus on meditating on this Bodhisattva and reciting his mantra, the Mani mantra, to the extent where many of them would have recited the mantra and would have for long periods meditated on this Bodhisattva a great deal, mantra recitations numbering in the myriads isn't at all unusual. And Khenpo Rinpoche says he has known many Tibetans who've devoted their lives to this meditation practice and to the recitation of the Mani Mantra. And in case of some of them, where he himself has been present at the time of their death, it appears that the usual fear and panic a dying person very often finds himself in is not at hand. And the conclusion he has made is that it's because of their very firm trust and confidence in devotion for the Bodhisattva Chenrezig, and them supplicating the Bodhisattva Chenrezig at the time of their death, so that therefore fear, panic and the like are appeased. Unfortunate experiences and circumstances are in this way avoided.
Tsang Togme Zangpo yang ta kung lakpla phago chenre zong chula sana isredla.
And here in the very first verse, the author Ngulshu Tome voices a praise to Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezig in Tibetan, indicating that this is his own main focus in terms of a bodhisattva he has devoted his time to, in terms of practice, meditation and the like.
Then Chetan Pugla, Pug Luxutala, Ta Longba Inanda, Gamba Inanda, Tene, Man Tung, Tongdup Seate, Shira Hogre, Man Tongshur, Tongshur, Sob Luxu Yorela, do Tatayang, Nede.
Now, in Old Tibet, as well as today, and in India too, where you find a lot of Tibetan Buddhist monasteries, there is the tradition of at least once a year that people in a region come together at the monastery of their region to recite the Mani Mantra together and meditate on the Bodhisattva Chenrezig till at least 1 million recitations have been achieved by the group of people doing the meditation and the recitation of the mantra.
That ring a chushet the sinking monk choate, young tire dozilla, Tepa King, Mr. Yindo Kabre. That young tire dojige, Shalop Nane, Jenresic Nanjur Pate, Lamashar Bianzer Rinpoche, Lord Rela, Conga Organization Chene, Man Tongshur Tsasum Ye, Tapasung Gudua, Tindela, that dozen Dervanda Sha, that range, Shendera Putuna, Shender Pu, Ranga Manada Song, telling in the Dachin Dansha as a con numbers of Tode, Panang Tumna, Tenung. Timmenayang Gawe Jesu Yarangre, Nang Tumnayang, Sonam Tumeva San Rugre, Sangudo. That thing it to.
Now, Khenpo Rinpoche says that he presumes that most of the viewers, are individuals devoted to the Karmapa Taya Dorje. And one of his main disciples is Lama Sherap Gyaltsen Rinpoche, who lives in Nepal. He also travels abroad, teaching abroad, but primarily he lives and works in Nepal, where he has his main monastery. Now, he every year organizes this kind of group practice 3 or 4 times, where large numbers of people participate. A group practice like this may go on for for about 3-4 weeks. And during this time, the participants remain at the monastery where the group practice takes place, and they are fed by the monastery and so on and so forth, in order to be able to participate. And Khenpo Rinpoche says, if any one of you would either make a connection with the organization and an offering to support the group practice, sending a sum of money, for example, or you could also at home devote a meditation session every day for a period of time to this practice, while counting the recitations of the Mani mantra you make, and then send that number of Mani mantras that you have recited in connection with the group practice to the organization, and then your Mani mantras will be included in the number of mantras that are recited. If you're not able to do that, you could simply rejoice in the virtuous actions of all those people who participate in the group practice, and that this is organized at all. Whatever you decide to do, whatever is within the reach of your possibilities, is good and would result in great merit.
Lasso, Tatine Lamata Nisume, Chödrak, Tandi Sare. Oya, Gangi, Chökun, Dron, Mesik Jang, Drovetan, La Chikdo Zenze, Lama Chodong, Jenres Zingun La, Tatu, Gosum Kube, Shaksar Lo, Saint Sholokatung Bunde.
The first verse, which is the one of an offering of worship, reads in the English translation as follows: I bow down continually with body, speech and mind, out of respect for the Supreme Teacher and Avalokiteshvara, the protector. Though seeing that phenomena neither come nor go, they strive one-pointedly for the benefit of beings.
Tan di thanda raw de kharisana pen phakwa chin re zigla sang je chan na yang drowa simjin drowa simjin thamche thun tu tu tang nekap kun tu zön ze bares chik tu zön ze se de semjin ge thunda cheya ma to shin tu so chu so zawa ne me ba doch zön ze pe den phakwa jin re ze kwang chuk tang de uch Togme Zangpo khorang ge zai la ma ni la sha nang ni sa re.
So here Togme Zangpo refers to Avalokiteshvara and the Supreme Teacher, that is to say, his own root guru, stating that he sees no difference between them. So his guru and Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva in Tibetan named Chenresi, are in his view, or between them, there is in his view no difference. He pay homage to them by stating that they strive one-pointedly for the benefit of beings. Now, the Bodhisattva Chenresi, it is explained, has in fact attained Buddha the enlightened state and is therefore in fact a Buddha, though in terms of manifesting in various world systems, he has or he does so as a Bodhisattva, primarily known for his great compassion. This means that he and the Supreme Teacher, who both are in fact enlightened, do not lose any time whatsoever in terms of actions by way of which they can benefit others. They strive one-pointedly for the benefit of beings.
Ta te che yon tu jendre zik sewe chik dege kar kogu yorsana jendre se du shesare.
Shenre tsik chik se kore erago.
Tsik chik rangre jendre se du. Zik se du teni jenje du sumdu semjen tamshe la teni tu tsewa chimbu jen dege zikindu sewara mato.
Du sumdu?
Tu tsewa chimbu semjen namyang dorg mare songare.
Das sik det kan det som så.
Zik se ta ngajo mige te sana mige ta dewa terwa. Cheza tsewe semte takpa te semjen de song job chene. Zik singe ti thonda le ro tsewe zik ba. Tsewe zik se wa dande.
The Tibetan name Chenresi carries the following meaning, or involves the following, namely that the Bodhisattva Chenresi throughout past, present and future sees upon all sentient beings without a single exception with great compassion for them, implying that his view of all sentient beings, as it were, doesn't include the way regular worldly people view all different sentient beings. That is to say, on the basis of likes and dislikes for some of them and others not. This Bodhisattva, in terms of his view of all sentient beings, involves nothing but compassion for them, great compassion.
Tene ta sak sal sede ta phago chinres on chuk yuen den de she ba gone lu kube rang ne ngabun de sala pap ge sha chi chu nga kube gone phago chinres ge chine me pa 이 규백권에 연된 제전도 시에바테 고슴 개권에 누구의 chapter.
Now, Togme, to begin with, said, in terms of this, the first verse, I bow down continually with body, speech and mind. With body means a physical deed, and here it's the physical deed of bowing down out of respect for the Bodhisattva. And one can bow down to someone in various ways. Here it's about bowing down to the point where your forehead, the palms of your hands and your knees all touch the ground below you. Then there is speech, which is about pronouncing the name of the Bodhisattva and his mantra. Then there is the mind perspective, which is about the practitioner recollecting the outstanding qualities of the Bodhisattva. So, in words, thoughts, and deeds, the practitioner, or rather by way of words, thoughts and deeds, the practitioner continually pays homage to the Bodhisattva Chenresi. Now, the way of bowing down out of respect for somebody that was just described was and still is a custom of the Indian subcontinent even prior to its Buddhist era.
Perna karshu lama tang ginrap la shakshawa singente nangbat samase yaga yusul layang yode base.
And bowing down to someone out of respect for them happens on the Indian subcontinent in contexts other than religious practice as well, such as a teacher, a regular school teacher, or any other teacher, and similar circumstances or situations.
Tene pen sanje gin do de chue nang du yang du yong de gre sanje la sha che ne pu mu zu de tam be chue nin sike.
Very often one finds, if not always, in introductions to Buddhist sutras that a disciple of the Buddha, a practicing Bodhisattva, for example, would kneel in the presence of Buddha Shakyamuni while requesting explanations as to a certain topic.
Ta lu gi sha che dang bi chan ne nang be long ba cho la to zo min ra wa do ga.
Now, in different Buddhist countries, there are different ways in which someone bows down to someone else out of respect for that someone else. So it may not be in the exact same way that was just described here in other Buddhist countries. It depends on the culture of the country in question.
Ta pögül lu se da ji le chat sun be yin na. Tene sha che ye de la gum sha zhong sha du sha se ne ye wa che gin do wa. Gum sha se de dos che ne tene ma che ne pu mo zub ne sha chi che gin do wa. Zub gu gur gam ne. Tel gum sha che bre. Tene zhong sha se ne lu chasan nar ne sha che gin do wa. Di ka la Sakya de dong bu ji ur tene tralwa tene jamba tene nyin ka tu che ne sha che da jik do. Tene du sha se na ta che da kyu jap che ne pa na ta jaga ge du so na shi che ge ma re de pe ne kyu jap che ne de res che ne gu gur che ge do wa tel du be sha se ge do wa.
Now, in Tibet, in terms of bowing down out of respect, there are variations. The one just mentioned earlier. Then there is a more elaborate procedure, as it were, where the person who pays respect first folds his hands above his head, then at the throat, and then at the heart center, and then slides forward on the palms of his hand, stretching out the entire body so that the entire body touches the ground. Then there is a more brief way of paying respect, where one simply folds one's hands and bows one's head. So there are variations in terms of how bowing down is executed, as it were.
Tene tasha tenju na ne tene chongsha cheye de shida yapre song che ne nam kalurum che ngajor ka tinte nang song mandu shudu penna dos che ne sha che yong de tene lakwe lakpa 공바 zupo tenchu wo le yue dunchin chinye ba tenye tu kholu jarbu ge sonam sagre songchen.
Now, most of you are probably familiar with the so-called preliminary practices in terms of training in meditation. And there are 4 specific preliminary practices in Tibetan Buddhism. The first is the one where one bows down to the objects of refuge out of respect for them, because of one's trust and confidence in them, seeing the objects of refuge as a guide to enlightenment. And the late Karl Rinpoche, Khenpo Rinpoche says, while giving instructions to a group of students, said that the second of the 3 ways of bowing down is preferable in the context of the first of the 4 preliminary practices, where that is a primary feature, namely paying respect to the objects of refuge by way of bowing down. So he encouraged that practitioners would do the second of the 3 variation, where one, using the palms of one's hands, slides and stretches out the entire body, so that the entire body touches the ground, having begun by folding the hands at the top of the head and at the level of the throat and at the level of the so-called heart center. Simply because, the late Karl Rinpoche explained, all the particles the body touches will be equivalent to the number of times the practitioner could, provided he does the practice properly, take rebirth as a so-called universal monarch in future rebirths. Such is the merit of this practice when done properly and sincerely.
Tagan shinge tene chongshate tam bicho nyamar la
De nyamso lempa på det kaset sarman på kolojovi gelpo gikeva lenyadan.
yichi mini jewalen gogmarwa
However,
de dan nyam besona.
This is an example. It doesn't necessarily mean that the practitioner in question will take these many rebirths as a universal monarch. However, the merit required for that many rebirths as a universal monarch equals the merit accumulated by the practitioner bowing down out of respect on the basis of trust and confidence in the 3 jewels. So this is the extent of merit accumulated by that practitioner.
Ta tagan shinge che nepan rabu Then Kongla the Jun King of Ji in the young. That when the Kongba the Jun Kinchina, then Dam Nepa of China, Guncho Tin and Chene. Luge Sakya Gokutsa Kutsa Che, Nag Sanje Tsim Mu, Yig Tepa Chena, Kochag Chödrak.
Now, for some people, because of disease or a handicap, it may prove impossible to do this. So this person can instead simply, while seated, fold his hands and bow his head in respect of the objects of refuge. That is sufficient.
Lasso, Tene, Tati Wote, Takung Tension, the some good Junsen Song.
Next, there is the second verse. Where the author voices his solemn declaration of intent in terms of the composition he's about to write.
Pending Jone, Zopsanje Nam, Tamshu Duble, Songte, Tayang Ni, Tay Lalin Shila Rahlepe. Here,
the verse reads as follows in the English: the fully enlightened Buddhas, the source of benefit and happiness, have come about from having accomplished the holy Dharma. This in turn depends on knowing what to do. So, I shall explain what are the practices of Bodhisattvas.
That teacher on to Tandesondoa, Dangbo, Pindi. Jone sont deux. Penpa Sangati de Nekap Rani Korman Korse Yang Lu Longje Ninja La Sopa Tsama Yang Jongye Tartu Shongchup Samji Dewa Yang Jongye Tek Zawa Kavara Leversana, Sangjek to Jaquana Ra Lever.
So here, Ngulshutome explains that the source of benefit and happiness, both in the world and beyond the world. Now, in the world, there are benefits that cause happiness, such as accumulating wealth, having good health, a good reputation, and so on and so forth. And beyond the world, there is the goal of enlightenment. In terms of achieving both, the source is that of the fully enlightened Buddhas. It's because of the fully enlightened Buddhas that both benefit and happiness can be obtained in the world and beyond the world.
Penang said the la Sanje Yang Kayim Bishi Yang Kayim Bishi King 미치 라 류푸섬 속바지 톱 저러바 야쳔부 유 되네 다가나 신기니 라쳔부 유바 양 디숨까 양 책ྔ말라 짐바똥와 추침송와 제박감바테 티 졸레숑기어레스 텐조 숨보테야 조부 상지 투겔 때네 남자트 시기어레 송이서레
Now there may be or there are in the world people who are in very good circumstances, even though they may not have had any contact in this life with Buddhism. So some of you may then think, how come that there are those people in the world who are in very good health, who remain in good health, who have acquired great wealth and therefore live in very good circumstances, living conditions, in addition to which they may also be very well known and well respected. How come that those people have been born in those circumstances? Some of you may wonder, thinking that those individuals have no contact at all with the Buddhist doctrine. Virtuous actions will result in very good circumstances. Virtuous actions that may have been engaged in on a very vast scale in previous lifetimes, such as acts of generosity, good ethics, patience, and so on. Virtuous actions do result in good circumstances in the world. The point Togme makes when saying that it's the fully enlightened Buddhas who are the source of benefit and happiness is that even though in this life evidently a person in very good circumstances has no contact with a Buddhist doctrine, it doesn't mean that this individual in a previous lifetime never did either. It's very likely, if not very possible, that this individual at one point or in many other previous lifetimes have had this kind of contact.
Wana sanje khan ten de shungare sana damshu drupal ten de shungare songare.
Then there is the question, well, how did the fully enlightened Buddhas attain Buddha the enlightened state? Well, that, Togme says in this verse, have come about from having accomplished the Buddha Dharma, from having practiced the Buddha Dharma and in consequence having attained the goal, that of Buddha, the enlightened state.
Yeah, tam chu duble sungte teyang nis. Ta chu dub sheshaw the kandechresana sungre teyang nis.
Well, having practiced properly, so that enlightenment is attained, what does that depend upon? Well, Togme says, it depends on knowing what to do. It depends on acquiring the knowledge you need to practice the path to enlightenment, so that enlightenment results in consequence of your efforts.
Ti into they lalin shela rale pe sung ta tambe chu kandes dub gogu yoba te rang nyamne kande nang gogu yoba ti yapu shejula tongbo rale bares.
So it all hinges on that the practitioner acquires that kind of knowledge. The knowledge which serves as a basis for proper practice of the path to enlightenment, so that enlightenment can be achieved.
That pen the shubina, not chu drugging sana. Then druggy chu the karim, but the tumbo tishik.
Now, a person who takes an interest in the Buddha Dharma and who aspires to practice the Buddha Dharma needs to acquire knowledge of how to practice the path to enlightenment.
The into passion should be enough. Pen young doji sung rig doji kutsi gnamba. Gonglo chuduk ne sonde gajubi gongkatsu nang la sheta suyeke gongba shibare. The chur dulu very chudu, Babaten chur dulu hakoi chetrova.
Khenpo Rinpoche takes the example of the late Karmapa, the 16th Karmapa, Rangyung Rinpoche Dorje, who from a very early age, the age of 16, set out to establish Buddhist institution of education, institutions of education at the various Kaju monasteries. He, throughout his life, emphasized this plan of his and put a lot of effort into achieving this. One should ask oneself the question, why did he stress the importance of Buddhist education? Well, simply because in order to practice the path of enlightenment, one needs to know what to do, how to go about the practice of the path to enlightenment, and that evidently involves acquiring knowledge of Buddhism that requires education.
Pen cassette to on your setting a person should be na. That Ngaping Angalo, the chick don't give young Ngaping Angalola.
Ngapchunganga?
Yeah. Sumung Chungparim Biche, La Papung Jarne, Kongi Yijin of Gundone, that Damba Mubije was Sotar Gedamba, Sonsim Gedamba, Mag Wonkur. Tenzo Yene, that Gap Tedu, come long button to Yamik Wonjushira Lepsari. Then contact Ya Bergshole Peg Gonje Yusat. The Yijin of Zan Mapes. Sulmon Charan Gamba, digital Sherat to me to Dush Sondoa. The Trombaram June, that Yamek lets her do Sherat Zuna Tandayusa, Tongmintos, Lokashan, Hingo at Hishas. Nima Chigla Chushet, Tegesamba Zogres. Inchi Minishuk Dobsone, Sumong Sherat the Tendency.
An example from the life of the previous Karmapa is the following. In 1955, he was staying for a period of time at the Puljung monastery in Kham, East Tibet. And there, the late Surmang Trungpa Rinpoche had come to meet with the Karmapa in order to be given or to request and to be granted the vows of individual liberation, the vows of a Bodhisattva, and empowerment or empowerments of the Buddhist tantras. Now, during this period, the late Karmapa instructed Surmang Trungpa Rinpoche to, after his stay at the Puljung monastery, return to his own monastery, Dutsi-Til, in order to establish a Buddhist educational facility there. Now, in 55 already, the Chinese had garnered a lot of, or a great deal of influence in East Tibet. Therefore, Trungpa Rinpoche had said to the Karmapa at the time, I can't see that there is any point in doing this. The Chinese already control to a very great extent our region, which means that this Buddhist educational facility, this monastic university for higher Buddhist studies that you have asked me to establish, wouldn't survive for very long, just a couple of years. And then it would probably go to ruin. His Holiness had answered, never mind, even if it just lasts for a very brief period, there is great value in this. Just a short period of expounding the Buddha Dharma for the sake of educating Buddhist practitioner is much more important than going to the central parts of Tibet, which the late Trungpa Rinpoche had planned to do at this point. So instead of doing that, the Karmapa instructed him to return to his monastery in spite of the difficult circumstances and establish a monastic university for higher Buddhist studies.
Then Chombe Song Jin and Dora, Lame Katin Nang de Kong Jin, Jong Ne Yarlo, Dene Digital Shera Data, Kumbajaya, Tantin Shera, Zuyek, Tadik the Chene, Nurjit Sugdu, Ngapjung Abdun, Zuk Songs, Ngabdun. Ngabdun, Ngabje, Ngaguge, Dawakashe Chigananda, Tapechik Songs.
Now, Trungpa Rinpoche took the instructions to heart. He returned to Dutsi Til. He set out the project of building the buildings for the monastic university for higher Buddhist studies, and that was completed in 57. So in that year, as well as 58 and a few months of 59, study courses were given. However, that because of the worsening conditions as to the Chinese invasion of Tibet, in 59, a few months into 59, the project stopped.
Chaza Lord in the Dawakashe Shera the Tsutubare, then that church Nankin de Khenpo Kongsharong Bore, Ti Ren la Kongsharkeyang, that to say you are Maresene, Yamara Chödrak Yak go, and the Tik Nandua.
Now, the period that this institution functioned was that of 2 years and a couple of months. And at this institution, the head Khenpo was Khenpo Gangshar Wongpo, who at the time said there is very little time left. And therefore, he gave 8 to 9 lectures every day in order to be able to cover as much as possible before this project would be discontinued. And if one considers the effects of his efforts there, those effects are still today very far reaching.
Tamchu duble son de teyane dey lakling shela rale bes ta chu dubluk de hakwachane ta drogore chebre lalin she gore chebre
Dadi changshup sempe lalen se gore lalen chirtami
tekba chimbu ki chu yongzo de changjup sem ki lalin ro
So that's an example which then illustrates the great importance of Buddhist education, because, as Mulshu Togme says, to accomplish the holy Dharma, that being able to do so depends upon knowing what to do. And knowing what to do depends upon the practitioner acquiring knowledge. Therefore, Mulshu Togme says, I shall explain what the practices are. And here, in the context of Mahayana Buddhism, the practices are those of Bodhisattvas.
Tandela Sanchup Sempe Nyamling Kari Imbate Sholokasum Subdun on the Dune Kong Songi Somari.
So below, in the 37 verses, known as the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva, Mulshu Togme sets forth the various practices of Bodhisattvas.
Tininte, Tangazo, check course to then church chen besin, ngaching the limit Lakachi at the Kanga. Chödrak is a tagiote.
So, this course, the purpose of it, the Khenpo giving explanations to you, you listening, the purpose of it all is to enable all of you to acquire the knowledge you need in order to engage in the practices of Bodhisattvas.
Tati yakuchi kosona rang lunga yisam gatentu te tsur nyamne chen lak tu len kaset tutub nangore mato temi pangbo shiujire.
And the purpose of this series of lectures is to make it possible to acquire a good and comprehensive knowledge of the practices of Bodhisattvas in the context of words, thoughts and deeds, so that practice can be properly done. Anything else would be a failure. It would be a waste.
Penna Tagore Bachegende Jisung Yor, Penin Jabujigin. Da Pe Soyaku Shibuji, Chutang Zangjiang, Soji Yue, Ti the la magic de, So the Lando, Satene, then Kakamta, Chen the Shison, the Jigbare Sumari. I ran the Chu Hak one Madunat.
So to not approach the practices of Bodhisattvas in this way, just described in brief, acquiring knowledge and so on, is comparable to the following. Gampopa explained. Gampopa is one of the founding fathers of the Kagyu school of Tibetan Buddhism. He said it's like a person who sits on the shores of a lake where the waters are clean and pure and dies of thirst.
Tene mango chige tene shanchub jisemle hasich dorje tekbasingenji yare samsam mahamudas singenji yare mahat singenji yare samgi yare te tenso samag zawate shanchub sem tuware shanchub sem nam matwe bage doje sembachi yongtab kansa dorje tekbachi yongtab yo mare mahamudra mahat karishena yong mare.
Now, there are those who appear to take the view that there are higher practices of the Buddhist Tantras, the practice known as Mahamudra, the one known as Mahāti, and so on, that are more important and more effective. Well, that view displays that person's ignorance of these practices simply, because the Bodhi mind is the very foundation of the Vajrayana, of Mahamudra, of Mahāti, and so on. There isn't a single one of these more advanced practices, as they are, or doctrines, as they are very often referred to. There is no foundation other than the Bodhi mind.
Lasso. Sunam de ye damje zaibanye tomne ye be danam pamje Chegana je balab trubai. Sigbe Chotlen do I do war show.